sometimes things may not always be as they seem. And that's going to be the case today with this, the CukTech 30. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome to another video of It's Not a Problem, It's Just a Passion. And today we're going to be talking about the CukTech C30 battery pack. And I just want to start right here out of the gate. It has a capacity of 144 watt hours, which is bigger than other stuff that I've tested on the channel thus far. But on the website, it talks about that it's airline safe. And I have to do a head scratcher on that one because my understanding is 100 watt hours or less, then you can take it on a plane. So I did a little bit of research, and there's a rule I didn't know. So CukTech is, they're being a little bit, they say it's airline safe, but 100 watt hours or less in battery capacity for a battery pack, you can take it on a carry-on, no problem at all. However, there are exceptions to that rule. Between 100 watt hours, or I should say 101 watt hours, to 160 watt hours can still go onto a plane if you as the customer, you as the passenger, get in contact and get the airline's approval for it to go on there. Anything 161 watt hours and more is just going to be an automatic no. So I learned something, so I'm sharing on that learning with you. So now that we got that figured out, we've got that out of the way here. It's got 4 USB ports. 2 of those are USB port A's and 2 of those are USB C's. All of that combined together is a 300 watt output. I personally have not been able to achieve that. What they say is that you can get 100 out of each of the USB-Cs. Yes, I was able to get that. And they say that you can get, another 20 watts out of USB A1, but out of port 4, which is also a USB-A, is supposed to be able to pull just as much power as one of the USB-Cs. I've tried several different cables. I've tried several different equipment to try and plug into that. I can't get more than a USB-A power out of it. So I was not able to reach the 300, but it still is very capable of output power on that one. It weighs about 2.5 pounds. It is nice that it has a carrying handle. Kind of helps with the portability. It is a tiny little square. The kids and I and the wife, we all kind of just joke. We call it Cubey. It's just a cute little cube there that you can see. It actually is kind of cool that it has a cooling system. There is actually a fan in the back, and it will pull air through it to try and help cool it down. And you can hear it at different speeds based on temperature, it says on the rating. One thing I find interesting, and I'm just going to put this kind of maybe as a side note, what I find odd is that it pulls air backwards to me personally. So it pulls air in from the back and then pushes it out the air vents on the side. I think it would pull it, heat rises, so it's trying to push heat down. And so I would think the design would be better to pull it from the bottom and then blow it out the back. But maybe if some people are setting it on a bed or on a soft surface, then it's not gonna be able to pull air anyways. I don't, a couch, sitting on top of a napkin, in a car seat, maybe it's gonna do that. That's the only thing I can think of. But just so you're aware, I think it's backwards. It does have a wireless charging pad on top that can do up to 20 watts. I was never able to get more than the 15 maximally pulled by my iPhone 16 Pro Max. So it says it's rated up for 20 watts. I don't personally have a device that I can pull that. So again, for my mileage may vary, but my personal experience is, it does have a really nice screen on the front. The numbers are very clear. The numbers are very bright. It's easy to see in the light. It's very bright in the dark because of that. But I'm a little disappointed though. So you would think in manufacturers the numbers would go up and then it would be better as you go up. You go into, like, I'd take the iPhones I was just mentioning before, for example. You're going to have the 16, the 16 Plus, 16 Pro, 16 Pro Max. The new 17s came out. They're following a very similar line in that regard. But this one going from the C20s that I've reviewed before to the C30s, yes, whereas there is a higher capacity and technically a higher rated output, although again, couldn't get that output. But even though there's a rated higher output, I feel like there's some cutback on some other features. As in the screen. The screen only shows battery percentage and it only shows in and out, which, you know, for most people, that's totally fine. For me, however, the C20 has a very informative screen. It shows, yes, the power in, the power out, but it also shows voltages. It shows amperages. And not only that, but the C20 also has the capability to show a graph. So on the screen itself, it shows a graph of power over time. Over time, you will see the rise and fall of power of things that are being used. And not only that, but on the screen, on the C20, you get, this is how much longer it's going to take to charge. This is how much longer it's going to take to be out. You don't get that with this. This just has a screen that shows percentage, power in, and power out, rated by watts. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. If there's one thing that I have learned, it's that making videos takes a lot of time. And unfortunately, life doesn't just stop and just let you be a YouTuber. It doesn't work that way. So you find me again at a hotel on my travels for work, and we're gonna talk over the results now. We're gonna talk about a couple different things here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put up the chart here that you can see for its capacity tests that I did on it, which are the highest weighted, I think. It's the easiest way to compare these less subjectively across different brands, models, platforms, if you will. So in the 1 amp discharge test, I got an 83.7% capacity, which is pretty good. That's a little bit below industry average, I would say. On the 2 amp discharge, we got 83.3, 3 amp discharge, 81.7, 4 amp discharge, 78.5, 5 amp discharge, 77%. And what's really cool is that this one, unlike the Anchors, this one actually was able to do the 4 and 5 amp test, which is good. And then the XT60 test was 80.1 for an overall average efficiency of 80.7%. And then adding up all of the percentages of efficiency on charging, adding all that up is 98%. And so what that brings us to is a total efficiency rating of 72.1%. which is definitely below industry standards. Now, it's quite easy to say, oh, well, that's not great. But you have to think about it, and as it took me a little bit to think about it too, there's a fan that runs in it that's gonna use even just a small, minute amount of power, but there's a fan in there, and even using on that 1 amp discharge, just 20 watts consistently, that fan kicked on even at a low speed. So on every one of these, that fan was running using power, cutting into those efficiency ratings. So that's something that has to be pointed out there as well. Which now brings us to the overall grade in which it gets. So looking here, we'll go ahead and now throw up this chart that you can see. I put in that average capacity of 80.7%, the charging capacity of 96. No, I said 98. It's nighttime, can you tell? Total efficiency is that 72.1. Now, I was able to get its peak power input up to 140 watts on charging, but it overheated quite often. And so if you've ever had an experience to charge an electric vehicle, you'll see that the charge rate goes up and down depending upon temperature and several other factors. But overall, I gave it an 80% on power input because more times than not, I could get maximum charging speeds, but it was limited when it would get warm, and that fan doesn't move as much air as it sounds like it should. Portability, I gave it an 80%. It's a little bit bigger than the CukTech 20s or the Anker 250s. So it's a little less portable, but that handle is nice. I only gave 50% on features. Yeah, it's got a nice screen that's easy to read. Yeah, it shows input and output watts. Yeah, it's got a wireless charging pad on top, but it really is missing a lot of those features for me personally, that I like to see the other voltages, the amperages, the wattage, maybe per port specifically. Also, app support would be helpful here. If you're not going to have as much information on the screen, then have a little bit more information in an app kind of thing. So I think it's doesn't have as much features as it could. Again, moving on to thermal. Thermal is 50%, just because there was a lot of times that fan was yelling and screaming, or there were times that things were delayed, especially on the charging, or the wireless charging wouldn't work because it would get warm and that fan would just be running. So something to take into consideration there. And of course on safety, 100%, because it has all of its safety ratings and testings, with a final grade on the system of a B, which brings us at 80%, a B grade rating. So I don't think this is a bad battery pack. I need to point that out there. I think this is an excellent battery pack that works very well, and it has stood up pretty good to a lot of the demanding tests that I've done to it. Run heaters off of it, blankets. I've ran, like I said, the XT60 charging other power stations. That's high power. I've tried to dump a bunch of power into it. I tried to put it in cold situations. I tried to put it in warm situations. Like, I've really had fun kind of trying to put this and the cooling fan to the test. And for the most part, it actually did really good. So if this you think is going to work for your needs, there's no problem in finding this on Amazon and go ahead and picking one up. Sometimes they have a coupon that'll take you 20-40 bucks off, I've noticed on this. Well, thank you very much for watching this video here. I hope you found all the information and kind of just my ramblings helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and just put them in the comments down there. I do try to read and respond to every comment that comes in. Love to have discussions on this kind of stuff because, as we must remember, it's not a problem, it's a passion.